Hello, I'm Jeremy, and welcome to another episode of RevUs Reviews. The 80s was responsible for giving us some of the best comedies ever made. Airplane, Revenge of the Nerds, Caddyshack, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Last Action Hero, Back to the Future, and Howard the Duck, just to name a few. However, there's one 80s comedy that people are kind of split on. A film that's incredibly silly, dumb, and enjoyable. I'm speaking, of course, about the 1984 classic, Police Academy. Carrie Mahoney is a parking attendant with a rebellious attitude. After an incident parking someone's car, Mahoney goes to Captain Reed, who's been lenient on Mahoney because he knew Mahoney's father. However, Reed decides that he's done bailing Mahoney out and gives Mahoney two options: rot in jail or join the police force. Naturally, Mahoney chooses the latter option. While at the force, he meets a bunch of eccentric characters, including Leslie Barbara, an insecure post office attendant who joins the force to get more confident, Larvell Jones, a human beatbox, Moses Hightower, a giant man who used to be a florist, Eugene Tackleberry, a confident police officer obsessed with guns, Douglas Fackler, a man so accident-prone he makes Mr. Magoo look graceful, and Hooks, a timid woman who can be confident when she needs to be. While Mahoney tries to get out, he discovers that he is in fact stuck at the force. Over time, he improves as a person and forms a bond with his fellow police crew. Police Academy is like if you took a Zucker Brothers film and removed all the smart comedy from it. It's an incredibly silly, stupid movie. The comedy is all really silly and fun. There are silly lines, goofy slapstick, and a ton of silly pranks. It's one of those films that demonstrates how to do lowbrow humor without coming off as desperate or disgusting. Looking at you, Seltzerberg. I honestly can't think of a single joke in this film that didn't make me laugh. The comedy is just that good. However, there are some jokes people might cringe at, like Lieutenant Harris flying headfirst into a horse's butt and Mahoney tricking Harris's lackeys into going into a gay bar. Next, the characters. Carrie Mahoney is a perfect example of how to make a jerky and rebellious main character. A lot of films, especially ones made for kids, botch up the jerky and rebellious main character and make him an unlikable dickweed. Mahoney, however, is pitch perfect. He's just a laid-back guy who coasts through life like a grown-up Ferris Bueller. And as the film goes on, he becomes a more likable character. He really bonds with his fellow police officers, and even does nice things like helping Hightower with his driving skills. Also, Steve Guttenberg does a great job as Mahoney. Guttenberg isn't usually that great an actor. He has a certain blandness in his acting, which can be shown in films like Can't Stop the Music and Zeus and Roxanne. Here, though, Guttenberg does a great job capturing the laid-back nature and confident attitude of Carrie Mahoney. Similar to Fitz from 12-Ounce Mouse, Mahoney is the kind of guy who just does whatever he wants, but over time he learns to be a better person. Next is Leslie Barbara. Leslie is a very cowardly, timid character, but he's still likable and sympathetic enough to warrant the viewer's interest in him. It's interesting seeing Barbara become more confident and even standing up to the people who bullied him in the beginning. He's pretty good, but not the best character. Next is Eugene Tackleberry. Tackleberry is an awesome character. He's really tough, confident, and trigger-happy, but at the same time is very likable, kind, and sticks up for what's right. He also has a very funny gag at the beginning of the film, which I won't spoil here. His over-the-top gun obsession also gives him a very funny edge as a character, and results in a lot of funny scenes, including one where he helps get an old lady's cat out of a tree by shooting it. Next is Larvell Jones. If you even vaguely heard of the Police Academy series, you're probably familiar. You know Larvell Jones. Mahoney first meets Jones at the police headquarters, where Jones shows Mahoney his sound skills. And when Mahoney becomes a cop, he invites Jones to be a cop too. Jones is a pretty good character. His gimmick is fun and creative, and he's a likable character to boot. Not much to say. Moving on to Moses Hightower. Hightower is also a pretty cool character. Despite his giant size, he's a very kind person and bonds well with his teammates. It's also funny how he used to be a florist, as that clashes humorously with his tough demeanor. He's also willing to stick up for his team, even sacrificing his job for the sake of hooks. Now let's talk about the two heads of the force, Commandant Eric Lassard and Lieutenant Thaddeus Harris. Lassard is a very eccentric, scatterbrained man. He has peculiar habits, including always having his pet goldfish around and obsessing over golf to the point of traveling by golf cart and golfing in his office. He's a very fun character and works well off the others. That being said, it was a really bad decision to replace Mahoney with Lassard in the final 3 films. Sure, Gutenberg refused 5, 6, and 7 in favor of 3 Men and a Baby, and Lassard is a likable character, but Lassard is really more of a side character than a protagonist. If they really needed someone to replace Mahoney, they could have had one of the main cast do it, like Tackleberry or Jones, or add a new character to be the main character. Finally, Lieutenant Harris. Harris is a very funny villain. Like Kurt Boswell from Good Burger, he's a very grouchy, over-the-top villain. His bossy, authoritative nature clashes excellently with Mahoney's laid-back, take-no-orders attitude. He has a lot of really good lines and is a great comedic foil to the other characters. Another thing I like about this film is how each character develops. Each character goes through their own little journey. Mahoney learns to be more kind and empathetic, Leslie learns to be more courageous, Hightower overcomes his inability to drive and becomes a successful cop, Hooks becomes more confident, and George, a suave ladies' man who as far as I know doesn't appear in any of the other movies, falls in love with Callahan, a tough police woman, and she falls in love with him. Their journeys are really interesting, well done, and enjoyable. Finally, the way their journey comes to a head is interesting and satisfying. It's cool seeing the characters we've come to know and love stop a crazy person from taking someone hostage, as well as seeing Leslie stand up to the people who bullied him earlier. And there's a funny joke about how they weren't even doing anything. In conclusion, Police Academy is an absolutely fantastic, enjoyable, funny movie. The jokes are funny, the characters are likable, the acting is great, the film has an enjoyable, cheesy charm. It's an absolute classic, well deserving of its 6 sequels and animated series. Yeah, there's a Police Academy animated series. I highly recommend this movie, especially if you're a fan of Airplane or The Naked Gun. It may not be the best comedy ever made, but it's definitely in the top 5. That's all for now. Join me next time when we talk about an incredibly stupid 90s comedy with science, partying, and Pauly Shore. See you then!